But now the government is going to begin physical checks at the border on medium risk and high risk goods coming into the UK at the end of this month. The final major change will come in October, with the government requiring safety and security declarations while also introducing a single trade window, aiming to reduce the number of forms needed for importers, which I hear anecdotally is pretty substantial. But meanwhile in Ireland, goods coming in will be checked after October this year. Well, joining me now is a man in the know, GBNews' very own Northern Ireland reporter, Dougie Beattie. Dougie, thank you very much for your time as ever. Is this going to actually help exporters and importers then?
Well, no, it won't help importers, that is for sure. I mean, why we're talking about this from Belfast is because of the protocol in the last 2 years. It was the bane for me. I mean, I knew it inside and out. And what actually happened in that stage was, because we are still part of Europe, goods coming from Britain into Northern Ireland, which is held inside EU regulation and legislation, were then checked at the borders. We had green and red lanes. We had so much bureaucracy, it was unbelievable. And for many manufacturers and suppliers, it just wasn't worth their while financially to bring products into Northern Ireland. So we ended up with shortages on our shelves and indeed then rising prices. Now, the framework document sorted a lot of that out, and we do believe that the deal that was sold to the DUP that put government back up in here again will allow us to, because we're part of the UK, to go straight in to Great Britain, where goods from the Republic of Ireland that are part of the EU, they will not. They will have to be checked on the way in. And that is a very, very delicate point for politicians in Northern Ireland, because if that happens, well, you could see Stormont coming down again. But really and truly, what this is about this morning, and I'm talking to you about it, or this afternoon now, is really the prices that may go up in your supermarkets because of these checks. So this is Customs House Square behind me, and before the EU, cities, especially port cities all around Britain, would have had a customs house there, and beside it would have been the veterinary, where they checked animal products coming in, where they checked live cattle coming in, etc. And of course then they would have said, was that beef produced to the same regulation and legislation that was acceptable to Britain, and then it was allowed in. But now, when we joined the EU, that all went. But now, of course, because we're out of the EU, Britain is having to check products that are coming in, as well as for veterinary safety, as much as anything else. But the problem being, of course, is in the time that we were in Europe, we didn't do enough manufacturing ourselves. That we exported most of the manufacturing, and therefore we are highly dependent on imported goods coming back into Britain. And right in the middle of when Rishi Sunak is trying to get inflation down, especially around food, this could put prices up again, because many manufacturers will say, well, it wasn't worth our while coming in. Now, during the protocol, the Northern Irish politicians had asked for a trusted trader scheme, in other words, very light touch, and we were told it wasn't acceptable by Europe, but that is the scheme that Britain is intending to use. And I can tell you by reporting on this, we have trusted support services here in our trader support services in Northern Ireland, and the bill for it is astronomical. It is way into the millions. And what you then have is hauliers having to do the paperwork in advance of bringing the goods in and out, and that puts many of them off, and again that will add cost to whatever is going on to the retail shelves in Britain.
So you're not confident whatsoever then that this is actually, because the premise there that I read out at the start, you know, it's actually saying it will reduce the number of forms needed for importers. Are you not confident at all that it will mean a reduced bureaucracy?
No. I mean, we have seen this in Northern Ireland. It was all to be light touch, and the forms keep on growing and get more. So if you take it, we have now vets employed at the ports. We had to have an extension of those vets, many more recruited, in order to look at live animals that were coming in. That used to not be the case. We always had light touch checks and that, even when we were part of Europe. Even animals moving from, say, Scotland into Northern Ireland had veterinary requirements. They did have paperwork. It kept things like tuberculosis and blue tongue out, etc. But of course, now that paperwork's getting even more and more. So once you start that bureaucracy rolling, it never knows when to end, and especially when you're bringing it in stages. So these controls have been starting to appear in Britain over the last 3 years, but this is really the main parts of it coming in now in food. And then when we go to the 31st of October, that will be on things like security. So no, I don't think I think it'll get worse, if anything.
All right, Dougie, thank you very much as ever. I mean, it's going to be interesting times because you've got the Irish government complaining now that there are migrants going to Ireland from the United Kingdom, and perhaps that's going to lead to some border concerns there. We shall see.